That's where it's a little bit difficult to decide because, of course, if they really wanted to, they could go for a hero like the Pangolier. When we talk about Sacred, he's one of the best Pangos in the game, and you have the Bloodseeker on your team, so you can definitely move it around a little bit. But I think more likely we're going to see A's hero here. Unfortunately, they really haven't gotten any good moves toward it. We've actually seen NoPing versus Infamous pretty early on. Because they have been playing in the other tournament going on right now in that Movie Star League, and they were actually both in the grand finals. So they've got a whole slew of games versus each other, and that's where Infamous was actually able to take the victory versus No Ping 3-1, I believe. So that's where you get this silencer ban, where no team has been running silencer in BTS Pro Series, but Infamous is the one exception in that regard. I do like the Oracle. Of course, that's where NoPing might double down, and they do double down on now heroes to get on top of it. And this game now becomes a little bit more difficult for A. If they were going to go for this Oracle pick, I really would have liked it on that final pick position for them. If they could have fast forward their draft a little bit, maybe just slam a mid laner, knowing your mid matchup already, I think this Oracle would feel a lot safer. But now playing Oracle versus Ember Spirit Clockwork, that is very difficult for A to deal with.
Yeah, he's going to have heroes in his face pretty much every single time. No real way to avoid that unless he's just not in the fight. And if you're not, well, what are you doing? You're an Oracle. You're supposed to be there. So life is not going to be easy for him. And meanwhile, for NoPing, I mean, they're set up really, really well right now. That Clockwork honestly could shift between the 4 and the 5. We have seen some other squads do that with relatively stable results. The Clockwork doesn't really care much. There's no major shift in farming priority between the 4 and the 5 anyway, so we'll see where they look to put that. In the meantime, though, the Beastmaster are going to come out for them, providing a little bit more in the way of maybe that lockdown, maybe that hero that can start to get a little bit more active immediately out of the laning stage.
Yeah, and now this is where Infamous have a decision to make. I think they should probably pick up their safe laner here, or rather, I think they should pick up their mid laner here. Sorry for the misspeak, but that's because they want to keep this pick blind as much as possible. But okay, they're going to slam the Weaver instead. That's okay. But right now, what NoPing are doing, it's a very similar strategy to the old Four Zoomers where you would have Brax and Husky playing this Clockwork and Beastmaster. It's the double vision strat. It's trying to take as much knowledge of those team fights before you actually commit in with your jumpers. Of course, those being the Ember Spirit and the Clockwork. But that's where this Weaver is an actual or an absolute crushing pick. Weaver is one of the best heroes to lane up versus that Beastmaster. Of course, once you get the Helm of the Dominator creep, there is a little bit more respect added in there, but this Weaver has a very free time, especially if he can somehow get out of those cogs. It's very difficult for this Clockwork to play. We'll have to keep an eye out on Sladen, seeing if he's actually able to find those circumstances where if you lose vision control for a few seconds, if he gets the Shikuchi off for again, just half a second too late, you get the cogs pushback, he just gets to walk away, and the turn potential is incredible for this hero. Once you get on top of Beastmaster, especially for the greedy build that you have to go on him, it feels like there's no defensive capabilities coming from your 4, that being the Clockwork already picked up. So really good Weaver pick here. I think it's going to do very well as not really being shut down by this Ember Spirit. Once you get level 6, it doesn't matter that you're going to be chainsed up. It's where we might see NoPing really be cautious about those team fights that they take.
Yeah, that root is going to affect the Weaver quite a bit less with the time lapse available. So, not a bad choice for Infamous. Not always the most durable of heroes, but there is always going to be the itemization to potentially fix that. We've seen some Weavers in the past maybe go a little bit more for the survivability as opposed to direct damage. So that would maybe not be the perfect solution, but should make that Weaver harder to bring down. In the meantime, we see the focus from NoPing on that middle lane. Queen of Pain and Storm Spirit both taken away, so they've already gotten their mid laner in the Ember way back in the first phase. Now they're just looking to cover it up. Meanwhile, for Infamous, mostly focused on the supports there because I'm pretty sure they're looking at that Viper ban as Panda's hero. And,
Okay.
well, that was not correct.
Yeah, and they're allowed to do this. They can always flip the script here, but this is a much different... Yeah, okay.
All right, okay.
I mean, you talk about Infamous, you talk about Alone. He is one of the few Huskars still left after all of the changes to this hero over the current patches. But yeah, they swap everything up. It's going to be an Angel Ember Spirit now, and Of course, I think this Kunkka is going to slot in a little bit more advantageously for NoPing than the Ember Spear. When Ember versus Huskar is known as one of the worst matchups in the entire game. So Kunkka can definitely survive a little bit longer, as well as being able to farm that small camp a little bit more efficiently. But still, alone in Huskar, it's going to be a very scary game. You still have this Ember Spirit going for you. You're able to play Ember versus Bloodseeker at the end of the day. It just means that it's going to be a much slower Ember Spirit, an Ember Spirit that's not able to ball out of control with his levels nearly as much. And that's where we're going to need to see a lot of rotations coming in from Dark Mago. Of course, they're picking this hero into the Weaver, knowing that, of course, X mark persists through it all. Same with the Oracle. You can't purge it off. That's the one thing that they have going for them disable-wise, where everything else, it's very easy for Infamous to actually get out of a lot of these fights. I think NoPing now, with this Kunkka pick, of course, it is to salvage the lane a little bit. Maybe they knew that Infamous were going to go in this direction if it was available to them. Again, Alone Huskar is a little bit obvious coming from Infamous if the game looks good enough for it, but you're still playing versus a Huskar. It is an incredibly disruptive hero, and it's a hero that if you don't have enough damage for, it kills your team. It slaughters everyone.
Mm-hmm. You have got to be able to get
No blood for
that burst, that heavy hit. You can't just let him linger on throughout the fight. Otherwise, we have seen in the rare circumstances that it gets picked up exactly what it can do. He just starts mowing people down with that machine gun right-click play, and it is a little bit scary for NoPing. However, we have also seen plenty of matches where the Huskar doesn't hit that sort of critical mass, and it feels like his drop-off point in terms of effectiveness is one that hits him particularly hard. So that is something to, well, maybe bear in mind for that Infamous lineup. They need Alone to find that success.
Yeah, and that's where on NoPing's side, it's even more crucial. Ooh. Okay. High five in midair between Dark Mago and Alone here. Once the lane starts, though, they're just going to be beating each other up. It's one of those aggressive lanes where at the early levels, Dark Mago can maybe get a nifty play, especially with the Torrents, because Alone, as you can already see, the base hero of Huskar is not impressive. You've got one armor when you're not next to your tower. It's very easy for you to actually lose trades if the creeps are actively hitting you, but that's where orb blocking is a fantastic and terrible thing that they decided to add to the game. But that's also where I think for the NoPing draft, Angel is such a key player here. Depending on how fast he's able to come online, there really wasn't enough time for Infamous to get a hard counter for him. So this Ember Spirit, if he can run away with the game, there is no disable for him. We've seen this before with NoPing, where they're able to draft an Ember Spirit who just ends up split pushing lanes, delaying the time as much as possible. The only issue I think for NoPing right now is once the nitty gritty starts and there actually are those 5v5 engagements, do they have enough damage with the safe lane Ember Spirit? That's going to be an interesting question they have to answer, because again, you're playing versus an Oracle and a Huskar as well, so there is that slight degree of healing, and will Angel be able to keep pace? It's very, very difficult to keep pace on this safe lane Ember Spirit nowadays. You can't really go for the damage build, so I'm curious to see what he actually decides to build.
Yeah, the days of the position 1 Ember kind of feel like they've passed us by, in a similar vein to the carry TA as well. It had its moment where teams could never be sure. Is it going to be at the 1 or at the 2? But it's not as popular. I'm not sure if I want to say it's not as strong. That remains to be seen, but there is a bit of a reason why people are picking other carries over it. Although, to be fair to NoPing in this situation, I'm still at least somewhat convinced that that Ember, when they first picked it up, was meant for Dark Mago, and they switched it up afterwards. So it's not like they initially intended for that position 1 play. It just kind of falls that way for them. But we'll have to see what Angel can do as we get a little bit of fighting here in the south side jungle. Homing missile hits onto the Weaver, but this is a situation where Slayton and Panda just really have to back off. Can't afford to stick around much longer with that many enemy heroes nearby. And did they?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Okay, the sentry will spot out the ward.
Just not even giving an opportunity in case there was a hero randomly there to hit it from the low ground, something like that. Gets the D ward. not much you can do about it. And Sladen
Did he just...
taking a little bit of damage.
Angel just snagged with the sleight of fist. Got himself the bounty rune in the river there, getting it away from Michael. So we talked about the click battle there for the bounty runes. It's a little unfair if you can click from, you know, all the way up the river. But it's a nifty play for Angel. And honestly, the sleight of fist at level 1 in the safe lane isn't going to be really anything for him. He should be hitting level 2 anyway pretty damn soon. And can use the sleight of fist to maybe get some early pressure on if Sacred and Michael are getting too close. But this duo in the off lane, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe a shackle into a Bloodright can get them started, and at that point you're relying on the right-click damage afterwards. We'll see if they ever put that together, but it doesn't really feel like there's a fantastic amount of aggressive potential from them.
Yeah, that's where you have to be constantly careful. Once you hit level 2 from the wind, then you have that shackle shot set up into the Bloodrights, and that's where Angel needs to be so cautious when he actually goes for those trades, and that's where the wind is a very obnoxious hero to lane versus, especially versus the Gyrocopter, because if he is a little bit too aware of where that homing missile is coming from, it's very easy for Michael to right-click it down. That's why Pandaboo is staying a little bit closer to those tree lines. He's trying to minimize the amount of right clicks that Michael can actually get off, because 1 or 2 bad trades and then suddenly Angel's not going to be able to walk up to the waves. Right now they do have 2 salves on the Gyrocopter though, so all but level 2.
Okay, there's that combo. Shackle into Bloodright. It's a nice bit of damage coming in. Meanwhile, down bot, Lumiere, well, he was able to get the kill first. He takes down Oscar. Sladen will trade him out, but that is still first blood going their way. But now Sladen, Cogs, there it is. He gets the trap down. A has to try and fight his way out of this, but with the Boars helping out on the damage front, Sladen should be able to get the double, and he will do exactly that. Meanwhile, back up top, Panda was able to slip through the tree line to get back under the tower and heal himself up. So Lumiere gets first blood, but NoPing respond with 2 kills for the Clockwork.
Yeah, it feels really easy for Sladen to make that play, and he got the initial cogs onto Lumiere. That was Lumiere being a little bit greedy with his positioning, but what can you do? Once the sentry control does go back into their favor, it's much easier for Lumiere to play, but this is the timing where you are weakest on this Weaver. Once you hit level 5, the plays that can happen to you just shrink so immensely. That's where you're more at risk if you're the Beastmaster walking up into the waves than you're ever going to be this Weaver. And that's where Sladen is trying to establish control of the vision game again, but it's so difficult. But top?
Yeah, a bit of a duel going down here. Initially, it was that shackle into the Bloodright onto Angel that dropped him low. Angel turned around for the Searing Chains onto Sacred, so both of the cores in this lane drop down to about 1/3 of their HP, but they're able to fall back. Meanwhile, down bot, Sladen gonna get taken out. Lumiere able to get himself a little bit of revenge there, as the Swarm coming in handy with that first point. So they're able to find that kill. Meanwhile, back up top, another fight. Sacred is getting hit up. Angel needed that Searing Chain to connect onto the Bloodseeker. Instead, it only hits Michael as, okay, we're just going to bounce back and forth here. Lumiere and A jump in again onto Oscar, and they take him down.
Yeah, it's a really small level advantage, but you hit level 3 on A, you have that second point Purifying Flames, and it's so easy. And mid, everyone's dying.
Combo works out that time. Last couple of attempts, they weren't able to get the kill, but Angel was playing a dangerous game. He was already low on HP when he moved in there. And Michael hits the shackle, and a level 2 Bloodright this time has the extra punch that they need to find that kill. So yeah, we are seeing deaths really everywhere other than mid right now. As, speaking of deaths, Sladen, he's going to get onto A. Nice cog trap in for the kill. Lumiere can't do a whole lot right now, and the level of activity in these side lanes through the first couple of minutes is incredibly impressive. Meanwhile, over in the middle lane, Alone is pushing onto Dark Mega with those burning spears. Shouldn't be enough for the kill, but Kunkka not a fan of this pressure right now, although at least he's still farming up relatively well. But you see a bit of a discrepancy between the cores on the Infamous side compared to NoPing's. There is a slight advantage for them.
Yeah, and it was a nice glyph from Alone in the mid lane, putting more pressure onto Dark Mago.
There's Panda dropping low, and Panda will fall. Sacred gets the kill. Meanwhile, down bot, Oscar gets picked off. And at this point, I feel like they're doing it on purpose. They're just going in at the exact same time across those side lanes. And that time around, they get both of the kills cleanly. Really, no one else has to be sacrificed. And now they might be in onto Sladen as well. There's going to be the Fortune's End coming through. And Lumiere needed a second or two for the Shikuchi. I think if he had it up immediately, you continue chasing after that one. But without it, if you're waiting a few seconds, you'd be chasing forward just as Oscar was TPing in. So they do back off, but the aggression is not slowing down in the slightest.
Yeah, and there's no reason for it to. And of course, Slayton has been finding a lot of openings onto A, but that is almost by design. I think A is meant to have a rough lane here, but that's where you have to be so cautious on this clockwork at this stage of the game because Lumiere is over the hump. You now have level 3 Shikuchi. You're able to stand really far up in these lanes. You get the full Falcon Blade finished as well 5 minutes into the game. And I think that's also where Beastmaster is just not a good hero versus the Weaver anymore. Even once you get that Helm of the Dominator, it feels like there's not much that actually changes here. It's always very simple for Lumiere to track down a lot of your creeps. And then what do? You have to wait for Dark Mago to get a play in this game. And he's got a DD rune bottled at the very least. So it's something for him to play around. It's just a much slower pace that NoPing have to go for here, and they really have to forfeit all of their lanes. And you take a look at net worth, makes sense. They're losing everywhere.
Yeah, that's not a great look for them at this point. All 3 cores on the Infamous side sitting at the top, so no, gonna have to try and do something. And Slayton, he is faster with the Trank boots. Nice knockback from Alone, but there wasn't anywhere to knock him back to. He goes directly into the cliff, so they're still trying for this, but that ghost ship, well, it's not going to matter. They still get the kill. Michael tries to come in with the shackle, and while he doesn't get anything initially, Sacred's trying to get in there, but look at the rush. 4 heroes coming in. They get the X now onto A. They'll pull him into the cogs. Oh, God. Hey. Level 2 Purifying Flames, it's not a crazy amount of nuke damage, but it's enough for a low-health Dark Mako to be taken down. Sacred now reinitiates, knowing that the Kunk is no longer here, but this is still a tough fight for him. The Rupture Hover does get applied onto Angel, but he doesn't need to move that far to be able to pick up the kill. Shackle from Michael cancels the TP. Angel, he's free to move now. He's no longer ruptured, but he dropped down that Remnant, anticipating being able to TP back and then heal and jump back in, but even that little bit of distance is still enough. Snipe.
Oh.
Okay, Angel. Go buy yourself a lotto ticket.
Another one?
Can he do it? He wants it. He's just going to go in for the shackle, but he misses! Well, okay, no, he doesn't. The shackle still hits, but Angel's not going to take the damage, and now Michael will be punished. Slayton's coming in with the battery assault. Panda's going to move over as well, and they do get that one. And Sacred now has to basically leave. He really doesn't want to stick around here too long. He's lucky Slayton doesn't have the ult, though. If the hookshot's there, they're immediately in onto that. Angel doesn't have a whole lot of HP or mana, but he would have had enough to throw the Sleight of Fist Searing Chains combo in. But that is Angel in a situation where he really should have been dead twice over. First in the west side jungle itself, then with that power shot, surviving on the tiniest little sliver of HP, and it all kind of works out for NoPing in terms of getting Angel away safely.
Yeah, and I do think that, unfortunately, Dark Mago there, giving up his life to was just the Oracle originally. He is playing Kunkka versus Oracle. You are going to be very low after that rum inevitably runs out, and it's something that you have to consider sticking around in a lot of these fights. Whether or not you can successfully retreat after your magic damage is actually coming through is going to be a big problem that NoPing have to solve. And ooh, Slayton.
He's running into Alone, unfortunately, but Dark Mago's coming in. Slayton should tick down to the burn, though. Yeah, he will fall. X, though, out from Dark Mago. He wants the kill. He should be able to get it, but now the Rupture's been applied. He'll just look for the TP. And yeah, Alone, you don't want to do that. If he tries to jump in and doesn't get the armlet toggle in time, then the Kunkka could have honestly just turned around. And if he had the Tidebringer up, which he did, that could have easily been a kill. So for Alone, tempting to try and push in there before the TP can complete, but very much in his own interest to avoid that play.
Yeah, and this is something that Dark Mago is so good at, even though you did fall behind a little bit in the lane. Now, looking at him, he is right on par with the Huskar. Of course, Huskar will be able to farm Ancients a little bit more efficiently than you, but once you get maybe one more item, or even now, Dark Mago can look towards this Ancient stack and be right up there net worth-wise, and that's where, how does Alone decide to leverage this hero? Is it just going to be very simply forcing the Roche Pit? Is it going to be trying to buff up his teammates, because Huskar is not very adept when it comes to pushing down towers, and without boots, his rotations are pretty slow. And
Panda will get jumped in on, but Dark Mago's going to push forward. Alone, however, saved by the Oracle, and now Dark Mago's going to get hit by this Fortune Zen. That's going to root him out for quite some time. Alone and Lumiere are in for the damage, and Dark Mago cannot get away. He's not nearly tanky enough to survive that.
See the stack.
Oh no, Alone's just going to go right in for it. Might have to do some armlet toggling here to really steal it, but they're going to give it a go. But now Sladen, he just jumped in. They had the detection. But Oscar, okay, Oscar's now in as well. They're going in one by one here, but if they can get the kills, it's all going to work out, but Alone will not die. He's going to toggle up the armlet, able to stand his ground. And Angel, I mean, he went in with the Sleight of Fist and the Searing Chains, but beyond that point, he's not willing to physically push into the fight. So, I mean, NoPing will lose 3, and Infamous didn't lose anything. The only real good news for NoPing is that that stack has still not been taken, but Infamous are very much aware of it. You have to assume they're going to start shifting their way over there again before Dark Mago or really anybody on NoPing could try to go for it.
Yeah, they have to be so cautious with these fights going forward. They can't allow themselves to fall behind.
Good shot from Sladen, but there's no follow-up with the Cogs as he was hit by the Shackle, but now with that Torrent coming in, Sacred gets locked in place. The Cog Trap will be there. The Ghost Ship flies through, and Sacred will fall, but now Alone's into the fight. He's going to look for Sladen. This is going to be a relatively easy kill for him, but the rest of the engagement up to the north is getting a little complicated as Lumiere does have to use the time-lapse to get himself away. However, Alone and Michael still pushing forward. They did get onto Angel with the Shackle shot. They're not able to really take him down. That is so close on that max-level power shot, but not able to make the connection. So, turns into a 1-for-1, but Clockwork for Bloodseeker is going to go NoPing's way, and as soon as that fight's over, you see Dark Mago, he's right back into the jungle. He's going to try and take this stack.
Yeah, he knows that his opponents are already aware of it, so he's just going to try and take it away, and he's going to get it. It's very easy for Kunkka to always do this. Unfortunately, not stacking even further, but efficiency is less important when you are on a little bit of a timer here, and that's where Infamous, I think, they can't take their foot off the gas. They need to continue to find these very clean rotations. Alone with the Invis Rune is trying to catch someone off guard in the top lane, but he wants to be here anyway. He wants to force down these tier 1 towers. The worst case scenario right now is Alone is unable to snowball any further. He falls behind the other cores, and he's no longer able to recover because Lumiere will be the character that wants to play in that triangle going forward. He doesn't want to be forced to play in that same vicinity. And that's where, even right now, going even on towers, they're losing the mid tower just off of pure virtue of the Huskar not being here. And that's where having a less reliable offlaner in that Bloodseeker, you don't really have that frontliner. It needs to be coming from Alone. And they need to keep finding these 5-man engagements. And NoPing, it looks like they're going to give it to him. Oh, Dark Mago.
Can they catch up to him? The Rupture will certainly help, but there's the distraction from Sladen. He actually hooked in onto Lumiere, so the Weaver has to use the time-lapse and can't immediately join the fight. Sladen will be taken down, but Dark Mago falls as well. Now, Alone's going to try to make the jump in, but the Roar will lock him down. No, it won't. A comes in immediately with that false promise to get him back on his feet, and this is turning into an absolute disaster for NoPing. You see Angel trying to get on the backline, but he's got to jump away. He has no HP, though. If they can catch up to him, they could potentially find that kill. Angel instead actually goes in for the kill onto Lumiere, jumps back into the river, but now Power Shot will snipe him out. So, nifty move from Angel to get that 1 kill onto the Weaver, but comes at the cost of his own life. He loses about 3 or 4 teammates there as well, and now that tier 1, well, it's under attack. Infamous outlast their opponents in that fight.
Yeah, NoPing, they're trying to play around their vision. They're trying to play around the setup that they should be happy with, but unfortunately for them, Sladen goes in on the backline. He tries to keep the Weaver out of the fight when Sladen's only job should be getting this Oracle somehow away from the Huskar. If a false promise like that lands, you see how easy it is for them to completely wipe the fight after that, because suddenly Oscar isn't a hero. You don't have that much damage coming from anyone else, and that's where they're going to start to heavily rely on Angel, but at that point, Angel did not even have his Javelin. So it's a little bit scary for NoPing to continue to exist in this bottom area, but that's where they kind of have to play down here, because if they're not up there, then they're giving their opponents just way too much map, and it's something that they need to force their opponents to feel cramped. NoPing are really mobile. It's really easy for them to play in these side lanes. I think if they can adopt a more split push style, then they are going to pull ahead a little bit, because as of right now, Infamous need to play in these 2 to 3 person units. A needs to be attached to Alone. Michael is always going to be with the Bloodseeker, so that way he's able to stop those TPs out from the ruptures, at least until this Atos is finished up, where NoPing can definitely play a little bit more split, and it's already something that they're trying to do in a little way that they're clawing back this net worth deficit.
Yeah, if they can maintain the efficiency without getting sort of punished for being split up, that is going to be fantastic for them. But you see Infamous starting to group up here in that north side jungle. They could look to put together a push with this many heroes in the area, but going all the way on onto the tier 2 would not be easy for them. Part of the reason why they would sort of need the full complement of their roster. But they're hanging out. They're looking for an opening, seeing who's here from NoPing. Angel is here, and now he's got to deal with the Beetle. Quickly able to remove that, but that's the only hero they see, at least in that top lane, but not really enough for them to feel confident. The thing is, with them dragging their feet, you look over on the other side, Oscar, with that Dom Helm, puts damage onto the tier 2, actually forces out the Glyph, so that does clear out the creep wave, but this is just Beastmaster doing, to a certain extent, just kind of Beastmaster things, sticking to that off lane for so long that he's just continuously pushing things in.
Yeah, and it's a little bit obnoxious, and that's where Infamous are struggling to stick onto these objectives, and it makes sense why they're struggling a little bit. Of course, you're playing versus Beastmaster Clockwork. Roche is always going to be a scary fight for you, but I also feel like without these forcing plays, their opponents right now are definitely pulling ahead. Right now, the supports feel completely comfortable to show in this top area. If they find Oscar, that'd be big. And it looks like they're probably going to get him here, but...
We'll drop down the Roar, but yeah, that's not going to do much against Alone. But Dark Mago, he's making his way in. Looking for the X into the Torrent. There's the hook shot from Sladen. He does get onto the Oracle. Can they keep him locked down, though? Not just yet. Michael, able to get the Shackle shot down. It will cost him his own life, but that keeps A alive long enough to throw the False Promise in onto Huskar, who will now just go absolutely wild on to that Kunkka. Gonna be able to get the kill, but now with Angel coming in, this is getting a little bit complicated. Alone will fall, but Angel joining the fight gets hit up by the Rupture. He's still able to get out the Sleight of Fist, though. That finishes Sacred off, and now it's just Lumiere and A to try and make something happen, and I don't really think they can. Lumiere has to go the long way around here to Sladen. Yeah, he just has a TP, so he can really leave. No, he can't. Okay, A says you're stand right here, but with Lumiere occupied to the east, I don't think they're really going to be able to track him down, as Angel jumped back in just long enough to distract the Weaver.
Ooh, and Michael's trying to get onto the Clockwork, but I don't think he has... Oh, not enough. No.
Sladen... Okay, that was worth a shot. If the Shackle latches onto the Clockwork, maybe you can go back in, but he is going to be able to pull himself out. But for NoPing, honestly, I think you have to be happy with that, considering that fight starts with Oscar being picked off and using his Roar onto a Wind Ranger that you don't kill until about 10 seconds later. So that start of the fight, the initiation just looked so rough for them. Sladen hooked onto the Oracle but couldn't prevent the False Promise, and they still managed to find some big kills.
Yeah, it's a problem that really, I think Infamous need to respect a little bit more. Wait for Alone to get his BKB, then he doesn't need to worry about this very good disable coming out from the NoPing side, and that's where Angel will no longer be able to clean up these fights nearly as easily. Once that BKB is online, the Ember Spirit is going to be more or less helpless versus the Huskar, and it shores up your issue, because once you have that BKB, no more magic damage is coming out, and on the NoPing side, there's not really any physical coming out. Of course, there's the obnoxious creep pull coming in from Oscar, but aside from that, their physical poke is really just poke. There's never going to be that man fight. It's what having this Ember Spirit does foster a little bit, and that's where they still need to adopt this split push style. I think if NoPing can itemize to shore up their matchup flaws, that'll be the best case scenario for them, but that's also where Infamous, they have more cores, and oh yeah.
They caught Angel up top. No, they didn't. Okay, yes, they did. The burn is still going to come through. Angel very nearly gets away, but that DOT able to do enough. That's the strength of the Huskar, especially against that Ember Spirit. And now, that Ember actually has no buyback. He is short on his money here by about 600 gold, so Infamous, they're going to push into the Roche Pit, and is there enough of a response? Dark Mago is making his way over if he throws the Ghost Ship in, maybe, but it's a little bit too late. He went for the Torrent instead, and that does not disrupt that. So Alone, going to be able to get the Aegis into his hands. They've already done such a good job of keeping him up and running in these fights. Now, they've got 2 lives to work with on him, so Alone can really just not care go in, dish out all the damage possible. When you die, you're coming right back up at full HP and mana.
Yep, and this is where the danger is gone now for Huskar. Playing with Aegis is so incredibly important. Once you have it, you get to actually output damage in these fights, which is incredibly important. Of course, you can still output a lot of damage, it's just usually you'll get traded out for it, especially paired up with this Oracle. But now you should be incredibly confident to march up to these towers where your opponents don't really have that option available to them. Looking for these fights, you even take a look at Angel's item build, and he went for the Kaya. Once this BKB is completed on alone, there is going to be nothing for him to be afraid of. He is going to be the Vanguard pushing forward, and I don't know how NoPing take that fight. I really think they need to start split pushing, and they need to start split pushing hard, because right now, they do not have the items or the survivability to actually cut these waves. They will just get run down by this wind.
It is getting a little bit rough for them. You do see Angel trying to sort of get that split push going, as he was able to get all the way up to the tower, so this creep wave will be doing some damage to the tier 1. I don't know if it's enough to actually bring it down, but it should at least cause a distraction. But at this point, Infamous, they're not taking that bait. They're not even going to send anyone over to that section of the map. Instead, they continue to push mid, and that is going to force some sort of response from NoPing. We'll see what they can put together. They got a couple heroes in the area already, as they'll hit the X into the Torn onto Lumiere, but that's just not enough of an opening for them to really make a move. Sladen, meanwhile, over in the south side, well, he makes a distraction that they care a little bit more about because they can find the pickoff. As Michael, okay, able to get himself away. Sladen went for the TP out, but Sacred with that root from the Atos is able to bring him down. But while that happens, yeah, they were able to get the kill onto A. Now they've got the X onto the Weaver. And okay, the homing missile actually is not able to hit before the X, so that is still tracking. But at this point, he's just getting too far away, and you see even Michael coming in on the backside. This will be a sacrificial play, but make sure that Lumiere gets himself out by the time the homing missile connects. He should be okay, but he's sticking around. Angel's going to give it a go. He gets the root down from the Searing Chains, but where's his backup? Panda's coming, but Panda isn't really a significant damage dealer at this point, so not sure they're going to be able to get Lumiere here. He's looking for the TP out in the tree line, and he will be able to make it home.
Yeah, and that was really well played by NoPing. They have the bottom creep wave putting so much pressure on that tier 3 tower, and in addition to that, Dark Mako makes the really good play. He goes in with the BKB. There's nothing that Infamous can do versus that. They have to sit there and watch him waltz in, and he just straight up kills A. It forces out that false promise a little bit too early, and if they can't kill the Infamous cores yet, then you might as well try and kill everyone else, and without any way to stop those TPs, there isn't an alternative solution right now, and I think that's something that NoPing can definitely play around, especially because they're dodging these fights, and well, Sladen.
Hook in onto A, but they need Angel to get here in time to really turn this into any sort of fight. Instead, he actually hits up alone, and it's not really the target that you want right now. Meanwhile, oh, that Helm of the Overlord creep is going to get hit up by the Shackle. They'll take it down. 250 gold going into Lumiere's hands of all people. And, well, now Angel's got to try and get himself out of here safely. He should just be able to jump with his remnants, but there we go. Okay, he will make the play there, getting well clear of that rotation. But now you've got 4 or 5 heroes hanging out in the bottom lane. Alone just finished off the Aghanim Scepter for the life break upgrade, and well, he's going to be looking even more aggressively for openings at this point.
Yeah, they have to be so cautious about what goes on here, but you take a look at Infamous grouping up for one wave, and NoPing have already made the rotations into the other lanes, and this is a big problem that Infamous aren't really deciding to fix yet. I think you have to send Michael back first. If he can break a TP, that'd be fantastic, but you're giving a lot of split push potential over to your opponents, and not just that, because of these double lanes in, you are not actually able to stick around for these tier 2 towers. It really does feel like NoPing are controlling the pace of this game, where you are more or less a bystander, and okay, sure, looks like you're going to get Sladen here, but that is just a clockwork. That's a clockwork for all the aggression dying in the rest of the map that now NoPing very simply get to walk back and farm. Maybe you get Pandaboo here. I think he's getting searched by Michael right now, and it should be a nice shackle. You will get him, but this is a lot of time, and the Aegis is just gone now. It's going to expire in 1 second. It feels like NoPing are doing exactly what they want right now.
Yeah, they delay the game. The Aegis is now no longer a factor, and well, you see there are 2 main cores, Dark Mago and Angel. They're not quite caught up to the Weaver, but they're not all that far behind, and they're above Alone on that net worth chart. So items are starting to come through. You look at Dark Mago's build. He's got the BKB, he's got the Halberd. You see the AC being built up. So he's going to be a little bit tougher going toe-to-toe with Alone. Angel, well, is not all in on the damage build. He's actually looking for the Aghanim Scepter, but honestly, it's going to give him more damage in the roundabout way. He'll have those upgraded remnants to work with, more mobility, and there's going to be fewer means by which the Infamous lineup are going to be able to really lock him down, which is kind of saying something because they already have only one or two means of actually getting onto the Ember. It's really the Shackle and the Fortune's End. Outside of that, maybe you hit a Blood Right, but that almost feels accidental based on how long the windup is.
Yeah, once this Ags is actually finished, Angel can be absolutely everywhere. It's incredibly hard for them to ever get a wave successfully to the enemy team's side of the map. And that's where Infamous, they're doing a really good job of building up a lot of their cores. There's a full Satanic on Lumiere. I'm just afraid right now that NoPing aren't ever going to give you a fight that you want. And of course, once the Roshan is actually alive, you're going to see the map refocus over there. A fight that I'm not entirely certain that NoPing are going to force, but look at bottom.
No one's TPing.
Yeah, almost dead.
They're losing so much HP on that tower. Now we see the TPs as Lumiere and Alone will make their way in, but the damage has been done. The chip is there. It's below 900, and you clean up the creep wave, but they don't even get the Helm of the Overlord creep. That Ancient Black Dragon manages to sort of sneak away. So if you're NoPing, outside of maybe getting a kill in that scenario as well, not sure how they would have, but hypothetically speaking, that was the best possible scenario. There were multiple cores TPing down there. You got the damage onto the tower and didn't really have to give much of anything up, although now looks like Alone should be able to clean it up this time. So they will be able to take that creep, but you are forcibly moving Infamous to the section of the map that you want them to be in.
Yeah, and very simply, it can't be Lumiere to be the one to TP to bottom. It has to be Michael, it has to be the Huskar, it has to be someone who can actually hold whoever's there, but unfortunately for Infamous, that's the hole in their draft that NoPing are wholeheartedly playing around. And you take a look at the items, none of the cores on NoPing are slowing down right now. All of them are becoming true cores. They're getting whatever farm they want, and that's why the net worth lead is teetering back and forth, because it is that close of a game. And when your opponents are just efficiently farming the map, okay? Dark Mago's going top on a Michael, but
able to get it, but now Lumiere's here. This is going to make things a bit more complicated. Dark Mago is actually stuck in the cogs with his teammate, but look at Sladen. He steps back, goes in for the hook shot, resetting, but Dark Mago, he's still losing too much HP. Panda's going to try to come in to help, but it's just not going to be there in time. They will be losing one, and Lumiere, he was dropped low as well, but he's able to get out with the time lapse, but now Angel makes his move, jumping in, finishes off Sacred. But now, is this a fight Lumiere really wants? He doesn't have the ult anymore, but with Alone coming back in, I think they should be able to get what they want out of that play. They can't get onto Angel just yet, though, and Alone just used the life break to try and get the clockwork. So if he'd have saved that for Angel, they might have been able to get that. They would have had the upgraded version, so they would have that have that taunt. And yeah, back down bot. Tier 3 will go down. Alone does TP in time to get onto that creep. So again, that's going to be a little chunk of gold going his way, but they lost a tier 3 tower, and now, yeah, Lumiere is alone. Though, well, he's not going to be taken down just yet, but what actually comes of this fight? With Angel out of there, I don't really think Panda and Sladen want to do anything. They have the hook shot, but if you hook onto Lumiere, there's no backup to really help him, so they will get away. But once again, NoPing, even in a scenario there, they did lose Dark Mago. That is normally supposed to be disastrous for them, but they're able to sort of salvage, and now they're going in onto A. They've got him. Angel with that Sleight of Fist will find the kill, but now Alone connecting with that taunt from the life break, and yeah, that's the only thing. Angel cannot afford to get hit up by that. If he is taunted and forced into that fight, then he's likely just dead before he can jump away. Speaking of dead, Panda gonna get locked down as Lumiere and Michael run him down. So just when it looked like NoPing were really starting to maybe get a little bit of momentum for themselves, they lose 3. Only good news, though, is that Oscar is once again going for this split push play, and who has the TP? Huskar's is up in about 5 seconds. Lumiere has one now, but it's Michael who will TP in instead, so should be able to clean that one up. Meanwhile, up top, Lumiere's looking for a high ground push of his own.
Yep, he gets to do this for free, more or less, on the Weaver. It was a nice attempt on the bottom lane to try and catch him, but it is a really good itemization choice coming in from Alone, getting that Blink Dagger. Without that, there were a lot more remnants for Angel to play with. He definitely would have been able to play a lot more scared in that fight if he was aware of it, but the Blink reveal definitely pays its dividends, and that is something that will always be a threat on the NoPing side. If you die once or twice on this Ember Spirit, the game becomes incredibly difficult for you. You're always going to be playing around not your buyback. You are going to be playing on the fringe for as long as you can. I wonder what we're actually going to see coming next from the Ember Spirit, whether or not that's a BKB to try and exist in these fights or the Shiva's Guard. I just wonder where we're going to see him actually feel like he needs to exist in these fights, because he's been playing so much split push, and that's where Lumiere with the Orchid.
Michael blinks in. He's going to get punished for it, but there's that false promise. Or, excuse me, not the false promise. It was the Purifying Flames that they used to try and heal him up. It's not going to be enough. Michael will fall, buys back immediately, but now Alone... Whoops. Alone is into the fight, trying his best to fight through this, but the homing missile will lock him down. Lumiere, meanwhile, gets hit up by that ghost ship, and he's actually going to die. Alone was the one who gets the false promise, so he's still fighting, but, well, they can't heal him up enough. A just doesn't have that really going for him, so Alone falls. He immediately, though, buys back as both sides realize this fight around the Roche Pit is unbelievably important, but the supports, they're just getting isolated. They're going to be dropping here, but there's Alone back into the fight. The problem is, the hero he jumped in onto was Panda, not a high-value target, and now he is surrounded. Angel even buys back to rejoin that engagement. They'll take down Alone, and now Sacred pulled back in by the X. He has nothing to get himself away. The blinks immediately canceled. The rod was unavailable. And NoPing, it does cost them a couple of their buybacks, but they will win. They control the field, and they control the pit.
Yeah, and that's where, as much as I like this Blink Dagger coming in from Alone, you have no armor whatsoever. Once you have that armlet, it helps a little bit, but you are getting torn apart by this AC and all the Beastmaster summons, and it is a massive problem now for you. You really missed your timing on this Huskar. It felt like maybe 10 minutes ago there was no way for NoPing to fight you, but we have gone to the stage of the game where they are incredibly powerful, and without this many buybacks existing for anyone, not just that, but the one hero that you would be afraid of not having buyback has an Aegis now in the Ember Spirit's hands, it feels like this game is completely flipped. NoPing have all the power, and Infamous have to be so careful. One more team fight, and you could actually, realistically, seeing them get Megas tier. This is where the Beastmaster push is inevitable, and here we go.
And Angel
tier 3
also got himself the shard, so the damage may not be great against the likes of the Weaver or Alone, but if he jumps onto the back line and just throws those remnants out there, that's a no-go zone for those supports. For Michael and A, they just can't really maneuver their way around it, so it is going to be incredibly difficult for them to operate, and right now it's going to be incredibly difficult to hold on to their base. One lane of Rax taken, 2 lanes of Rax now gone as well as they rotated bot, but I'm not really sure they're going to go for the top lane. With Huskar back up in about 5 seconds, that would get a little bit risky, but you got a massive creep wave already doing a fair bit of damage to it, so this is where Infamous are really going to have to bear down, dig deep, find what they need to win the fight, because, yeah, if they lose one more, I mean, that's the Megas, that's potentially just straight up the game, so they've got to be so careful, so judicious with their decision-making here as well. You need the fight, yes, but it has to be one that favors you.
And that's where I think we really need to see them get some vision control. They're always scouted out by these Hawks. They're always getting interrupted with the dive bombs. And unfortunately for A, he has to make this impossible decision every single time. Because there's no Satanic or Lifesteal built up on the Huskar, he can't rely on himself to actually survive in these team fights. So he always eats the false promise. And that's where you have no room for error on the Weaver. And that's where, unfortunately, he gets X'd, he gets blown up, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's where NoPing have really done a fantastic job of creating multiple opportunities for them to find these backline targets. And now a full Daedalus on Dark Mago. If these fights get long and drawn out, he's going to start doing so much damage. He has gone for the other side of Kunkka. There's no Hex, Shiva's Guard, Ags. He's gone for something completely different, and smoke spoiled by the Ember. Cool.
Oh, they jumped onto Panda. Sladen, meanwhile, does hook onto A over on the other side of the fight, so the Oracle has to make a mad dash to keep himself safe. But while he's doing so, his teammate gets hit up. That is going to force out the false promise, but now that Alone's been hit by it, NoPing are just going to try to sort of keep their distance. Alone, meanwhile, isn't really being healed, so he has to fall back, but he can't. they weren't healing him throughout the entirety of that false promise. So Alone is dead. He does not have buyback, and all of a sudden Lumiere, that time lapse doesn't get him much more health. He is immediately in trouble again, and I think that might just be it. Michael's dead, and yeah, that's
GG.
it. Wow.
Holy cow.
I mean, they just kind of stumble into that fight. It didn't seem like that was going to be the all-encompassing play, but the second NoPing recognized that, they push forward. They go all in. Sladen ends up basically suiciding to make sure that Oracle isn't in the position that he wants to be. And you force out the false promise early, the Oracle can't provide any backup healing, and without Alone, the fight just ends.
Yeah, and I think that for a while there, Infamous felt like they were the stronger team. I felt like if they were able to actually force out a lot of these heroes back, if they simply cleared a wave, if they pushed bottom all the way in, if they find any pick onto Oscar, they stick NoPing in their base in a fight that they can't win, but instead they let NoPing get away with it for way longer than they have any business going forward to. And then suddenly, after 1 or 2-1 fights, they don't immediately go for that reset. They don't lick their wounds, say that we need to finish a few more items before we can actually go for these engagements. You look at Alone in Lumiere, no BKBs, no spell immunity. Everything was all about getting saved by A, and unfortunately for them, as good as a player as A is, he can't save everyone, so one of them has to die. And in addition to that, Sacred, who, again, seeing playmaking South American offlaners on this Bloodseeker, fell off completely. It felt like those ruptures were no longer a factor in these fights, and I feel like for the third or fourth time today, we are seeing Bloodseekers who get picked up because they want to counter out a first pick, and then they get countered, and then they feel like they don't have a place in the game anymore. I really feel like if Infamous can fix their split pushing heroes, this game might look a little bit different, but I also think NoPing played their draft to a T. They just never let Infamous get that clean fight. It's scrappy Dota, but it worked completely effectively. I don't know. 34-29 and NoPing win in 35 minutes. It's crazy how fast that House of Cards fell.
For Infamous, just the chaos of some of those fights really did not work out for them. So it's a little bit weird to say that the team with the Weaver, Huskar, Bloodseeker core trio was the one who wanted things to be more ordered and structured, but that is kind of the way that it went, and when that control leaves them, Infamous don't have a whole lot left to fight with, and the game very quickly turned. So congratulations to NoPing. They get the victory in game number 1. That's their second win on the day. They're going to be looking now for the chance to get themselves that 2-0 sweep and take 3 of 4 to close out the group, or not the group stage, excuse me, the day here in the group stage. So NoPing with the opportunity for that sweep moving into game 2. Meanwhile, for Infamous, tough loss, but the chance for the 1-1 draw here definitely going to be appealing for them, and I think they may want to change up the strategies a little bit here with their drafting. But we'll see what that draft has in store. Game 2 should be coming your way in just about 5 to 10 minutes. So we will step away for a moment and be back for our final game of the evening. So stick around. We'll be back in a bit.